Hello knitters, Phelan from Strands Knitting Studio in San Clemente, California. And today I have on my needles some classes and another tutorial, so stay tuned. On my needles, so last Sunday, I taught Sunday or Saturday. Anyways, I taught sock class, how to knit a sock, and it was the baby sock class. And it inspired me to get another pair of socks on my needles because I don't currently have one actually on my needles. So I casted on a new pair of socks. And there's the beginnings of it. And here I'll put a picture up. It's this sock is by Claudia Fromke. I'm not even going to try to say the name because it's German and I can't say it. but it's a fun Fair Isle sock pattern, which I truly enjoy Fair Isle sock patterns. And the top, this top here is a rib, but you just alternate your colors. It took me 3 tries to get this going, just so you know. It's not always perfect. So I got the first one going. And then the purl stitches, I'm doing purl stitches in the dark red. I did it in the white, and the bump on the purl stitches wasn't super consistent, and it really showed in the white. So I took it out and put it in the red, and now when there's a bit of an inconsistency, you really can't see it. So that was good. Then it started with 60, I don't know, 4 stitches, something like that. And then once you get down to this part, you added stitches up to 70. Well, 64 didn't, especially with stranded, because stranding is going to be less stretchy than just knitting a rib would be, because you've got stranding going on in the back. So, so you have vertical or horizontal threads that don't stretch a whole lot. It doesn't stretch a whole lot. So anyway, so 60 wasn't going to fit past my heel. I put it on, I'm like, I'm never gonna get this over my heel. So so I started the whole thing over again, and I started with the 70 or 72 stitches or whatever it is that the whole sock will be. And yeah, hopefully this works out. Stranding is a little tricky on socks, as I said, because it's not as stretchy. It takes away some of the stretch. So you need to make sure that you're doing it loose enough so that you have stretch. I also went up a needle size to make sure that it is loose enough and that I do have stretch, because I tend to be a little on the tight side for this. But anyways, I've started a pair of socks, so that's fun. Okay, first class is this Saturday from 12 to 2. It's the Luminaria, which is another mosaic. It's maybe the last of our mosaics. I have no promises, but so here's the Luminaria. It's mosaic. You start up here at the top and do this little tab thing that you have to do, and then you just get into the thing, into the pattern. And so, as I've said many times, slip stitching mosaic is the easiest and really fun way to do some color work without too much stressing, because you're just slipping stitches. I'm using the earth yarns, which is this middle row here, because of the long striping yarns. So the colors change very slowly, and as you can see, how long the colors stay before they change. And so that's what makes this work, is that long striping yarn. If you look at the pattern, she actually has you doing different yarns for the different colors. That's too much work, and it costs a lot more money because you got to buy different colors. Where this is one skein, it has all the colors, and it works beautifully. So no changing colors, no weaving in. This is the way to go. So Luminaria is Saturday from 12 to 2. Okay, our other class we're doing is the baby sweater. So this is a top-down raglan baby sweater, little cardigan, and it has a really nice stitch pattern at the bottom of it and on the sleeves, which you don't have to do, by the way, but you can. So this is the perfect project to do your very first sweater. So if you haven't knitted a sweater yet and you're a little nervous, this is the way to go, because one, it's very little, so you get through the whole process much faster than if it's, and of course it's less yarn and all that stuff. It's just a lot of fun. You can save it for your grandkids if you don't have them yet and you're expecting them, or friends of people that have babies, or just keep it and it's your first sweater. But I would also approach this not just as a baby sweater. I mean, if you want to just knit the baby sweater and you already do sweaters, you want to just sit, perfect. But if you just haven't knitted a sweater yet, this is a good way to go because it's just so much smaller. So this becomes a learning technique and a learning project other than just a knitted project, because you will learn how to knit a sweater. And it's just much faster. Same with the socks. It's just much faster, much more manageable, not so overwhelming as a full adult size sweater can be. The sizing isn't as critical because we always make them bigger anyways so that the kids grow into them. And so the sizing isn't really an issue. So it really is the perfect beginning sweater project. Christine is making it out of this Nora yarn. She's doing the purple one, which I showed you last time. But we have a really nice blue and browns and aquas kind of colors. And of course the pink. And so this is an option, right? And then the hand-dyed. Okay, and then the hand-dyed are Yucanio Suave, which is a worsted superwash, so this is washable. And we have about 6 colors, I'm pretty sure. All different kinds of colors. This would make a really good boy one. That's a really good one. And of course, the purple and pinks, and I have all the colors. So anyways, but this is really soft and really, really nice yarn, and it would make up this baby sweater perfectly wonderful. So those are your options. It is a worsted weight yarn, so you've got more options than just these two in the store, obviously, but these would be the two I would choose, especially this one. I think I would really like this one because it's just really soft and it's still superwash, so that's what's really good. So again, things are really a good way to do beginning sweater work, and this is a basic raglan sweater, and that basic is cardigan, and that's basic sweater is like one of the most pattern sweaters out there is top-down raglans because you don't have seaming. Everything's there's no seaming, so you don't have to sew anything together. It just gets all knitted together in one piece. And so when you're done, and you don't have to do the dreaded sewing. Everybody likes the dreaded sewing. So this is a good way to learn a raglan pattern and then do one for yourself because you understand what's going on and everything. So so that's another reason, in case you don't have babies, this can be a technique class and be your first sweater and teach you how to do all that. And then you can either put it away for grandkids to come, or when somebody has grandkids, your kids have friends that are having babies, that you've got something you could give it. You'll find a baby somewhere to give it to, I'm sure, if you really want to. We have a new, very old yarn into the studio. Okay, we've got what's called Fixation. And it is a cotton yarn with spandex in it. So it stretches. So it's a cotton yarn that actually stretches, like it stretches. Like you can see it stretches, right? So this gets used, one of the biggest things it gets used for is bathing suits, bikinis and stuff. It gets used a lot for that because it does stretch, which means it sort of stays on and doesn't get limp or anything. So that's one of the big things this is used for, but it can be used for, it's a cotton yarn with some stretch. That's all it is. And so, and it's smaller though. This is a 3, so this is a DK weight. So it's not that small, it's DK weight. And, so that means you're on needles like from 5 to 9, so that's not real small. But hats, this is wonderful for hats. It's wonderful for socks. And if you're doing baby socks, it's wonderful for baby socks. And which, by the way, that class went really well this last weekend. So if you wanted to learn socks, that the baby sock idea is the way to go, and to learn the magic loop and stuff, and either do a private or come to a workshop and I can get you going on it. But it's also good for socks. It's really good for anything. And because it is a cotton yarn, it would be really good for a tank top, and especially some of them that are a little bit smaller that you want, it just sort of pulls in some. And so it's a really good yarn. So and we've got bright colors. It's like a bunch of really, really bright colors. I thought I had 3 of these. Where's the other one? I don't know, but they're very bright colors. I had a yellow. Where's the yellow? It's gone. Oh, wait. but we have, I don't know, 6 colors, and they're very bright colors, very fun, summery kind of colors. Bags would be good for this too, like a shopping bag, one of the market bags. This would be good. So this is a very versatile yarn, but it's just a little bit different. It's been around for a really long time, but we haven't had it in the store for a while. So Fixation, and it's a stretched cotton yarn. So it's a cotton yarn with spandex in it, and it's a DK weight. And my encore tutorial this week is picking up stitches, how to use a lifeline, why you use a lifeline, how to pick up stitches, little tricks that help that all be much less scary as pulling, the stitches off your needle and pulling things out. You should do a swatch. I would do a swatch and practice these things, and I would do a swatch that I just can pull it off my needles, pull the stitches out and get the needle back in, because that's the only way it becomes less scary is by doing it. So, put on 20 stitches, knit a couple inches, take your needle out, pull it out for a row, and then get your needles in with the tips that I'm about to tell you in this tutorial. So stay tuned. Okay, so what is a safety line or lifeline? I tend to call them a lifeline. Safety, you'll hear it called a safety line. So this is a piece of waste yarn, just a piece of yarn that you will string through your stitches. And then when you are, if you make a mistake up here, then you're able to take it off your needles, pull it out. It will stop right here at the line that this yarn's running through, and the stitches will be up on this yarn, so they can't drop down any further. And you can easily put your your needle through your stitches and continue. So I'm going to show you sort of from the end of it to the beginning of it, because I needed this lifeline to be in and some knitting on top of it, so I can show you what happens. Okay, so let's say I made it, totally screwed it up, and I don't think I can fix it, and so I just literally take this off my needles. Now this scares every knitter I ever do this with, but if you look, as long as you're not pulling on it, this just sits here. It's not going anywhere. It's not like it dissolves. Now, there are plant silk especially, but there are some plant fibers that you may not want to do this with, unless you got a lifeline. But if you're just trying to pull out a row and go back on, there are certain things that you wouldn't do that. Also, if you're using really big needles for the yarn so that the stitches are big and loosey, those you're gonna, if it's a row, you're just gonna take out the row, because it's easily that the stitches start moving down through other stitches because they're so big and loose. But if it's just a typical, fabric, then, and it's any kind of animal hair blend, whatever, it doesn't dissolve on you. In order for you to start having problems, you're going to have to start pulling on it. And as you see, as I start pulling on it, then things are going to want to start coming out. Okay, so don't pull on it. That's all you have to do. Don't pull on it. You can pick it up, but don't pull on it. Okay, so let's say I've got a mistake. I'm now just going to pull my knitting out. I'm just pulling it out until it stops pulling. It's going to stop pulling. I don't even have to guess. It's just going to stop pulling. It's right here. I can no longer pull. It stopped pulling because I'm now in the row that has the yarn through it. Okay, the next trick to picking up your stitches is to always have a smaller needle. Now, these are my interchangeables. I got something really small, so I didn't bother to put this other needle on, but you have a set of needles. So I have like a set of 4s. And I actually have some smaller, but at least a 4. If you're just, if you're usually like in your 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever, then a 4 is going to do good. If you do a lot of bigger, like 11, 13, 15, then you may want like a 9 or something to go through those so they're not too loose, that those are so big compared to this 4. If you're a sock knitter, you need like a 00, because that's what's going to work. So they do make them. That goes to 000. So they do make 000. But you'll want a smaller needle. It changes especially the smaller your yarn gets, the more important this step is, because you just aren't pulling stitches out as you're trying to get the needle through and pulling the next stitch. You're pulling on the stitches trying to fall out. And the smaller needle just slides right through the stitches, which you're going to see. So now here I am. Right? And now I'm just going to pick up my stitches, and if one falls through, so if you look at this one right here, and this was my last one, that's why this sort of fell through like this. I'm going to take this one, and actually I wouldn't pull out the last stitch. Don't pull out the last stitch, because then you won't have this problem. So don't pull out the last stitch, and I'll tell you what you have to do since you didn't pull it out. But now, as you can see, the stitches are just sitting here, and it's a piece of cake to just put them on. You're not going to put them on backwards. You're probably not going to split them unless you actually split it when you were putting the waste yarn in. This is also called waste yarn. Waste yarn is yarn that's just like it's just yarn. It's not for your project and everything. Also, the yarn you use for this needs to be very close to the size of the yarn you're knitting with. So I would not put this into a chunky weight knit, because the stitch, I'll be having to pull the stitches won't go anywhere, but I would be having to pull the red thing on either side of the stitches to pull the stitches up enough for me to get into it. So match your yarn pretty closely, all right? So I'm just taking this through. It's easy, nothing's twisted, nothing's split. It's amazing. It makes this so unscary. It's the best thing in the world. It's worth the time to put it in. Okay, and now I'm back in. And I have all my stitches and everything's cool. All right, now when you're knitting your first row, now this was my smaller needle. So when I start knitting again, I need to make sure I start with my needle that I'm working for this project. And this is just a holder. Your left-hand needle is always just a holder. And then you have to find your working yarn, because if I start over here, my working yarn's over here, that's not gonna work. So actually what happened, I'm just gonna slip because I didn't put a needle over here. I'm just gonna slip my stitches over onto my needle. But you could just knit them over. You wouldn't have to take time to slip. And if you've got a lot of stitches on, just work your row. Whatever row you're gonna go on next, just work your row with your needle that you're using for this project. Now, when you put the line in, you need to mark, like the line is in row 2, which means I will be starting row 3. You need to make sure you note that, so that you know when you take this out, you know where you're starting, and you're not having to go, uh-oh, now where am I? So make a note on your pattern or on your notes what row it's in, and that means which row are you going to be starting, okay? All right, so then you're going to knit. And again, I'm going to sort of pull this out a little bit so it's out of my way. And there we go. All right, so I'm going to knit this row. Now, the orange yarn's here. It's a little fiddly. It can get in the way sometimes. And if you split it like I did there, so I split this when I actually put the red in. So there we go. It's okay if it actually gets knit up into a stitch. That's not a problem. What's a problem is if you do split it, that sometimes that'll make it so you can't pull it out, and you just have to snip it a couple times so you can get it out, but you can't reuse it. But it's fiddly, and you just sort of make it happen. I suggest if you're doing cables that you put it in the row after the cable. So you do a cable row. Usually you do the backside row back, and it's just this plain row. Put your cable after you've done that row, and that way your cable is safe, but you're not having to knit this right after cable row, because it's a little wonky. So I would do the back side of the cable row and then put the lifeline in. And I highly suggest you actually do this for cables, because cables aren't easy to take out. I'm going to show you what I mean in a minute. All right, so now I'm going to knit this whole thing. There we go. And my line's back in, and that's that. All right, now, if after I've knitted maybe a couple inches, an inch, it depends on how involved your pattern is to how often you want to replace a line. If it's simple, you could probably go an inch and then maybe 2 inches or something. If it's lace and difficult, I don't know, sometimes every 4 rows might be, every other row might be for a while until you like really get the lace pattern down, and then maybe every 4, then maybe every 6 as you get the lace pattern down. Cables the same way, you know, but cables, well, what I'm doing is every row there's every 2 rows there's a cable. So it just depends on what you're knitting and how well you're knitting that technique at the time. So the least you know the technique, the more often you're going to put these in. If you've got this down, then you know you can leave longer distances between the lifelines. So to replace the lifeline, I always have 2 running. So I would knit up to wherever, and I would put it a second line. Because I've had it happen where I'm up here and all of a sudden I see a mistake, but it's actually on the line or below the line. So I have to pull the one I just pulled out, and I may have to go down to this line. But if I've already pulled this line out, I'm sort of screwed. Okay, so I keep 2 lines in, and then you just hopscotch them up. So, but let's say, so you would pull this one out, and it just pulls right out. not a big deal. You need a tapestry needle. And all tapestry needles, so it doesn't matter if it's bent or straight, doesn't matter. You want one that isn't pointed, because we've got two needles that we use. We use tapestry needles that are big eyed, like, usually not quite this big eyed, that are pointed, that you use for weaving stuff in. And then you have these blunt ones, which you use for doing stuff like this and sewing garments together, because while you're sewing, you're not wanting to really pierce the fabric, split it out. So that's what these are for. And then, because if I have a really fluffy yarn, this is how you're going to always, this is no big deal. This yarn is easy to thread. But if it was a bigger fuzzy yarn, this is how you thread it. So you've got the skinny part, that's the fat part, that's the skinny part. So you're looking through the hole. You're going to loop and go ahead and leave yourself a good tail. And then you're going to pinch it. And you're going to pinch it where when I take out this needle, you can't see, you can barely see the yarn. Okay, so it's very smushed down. And when you keep it like this and smushed down, then even if it's really fluffy, you will be able to sort of go like that and pull it through. All right, if you try to do it like this, it's not going to happen. So the trick is pinch. The yarn is in between the fingers, you can hardly see it, and then you just wiggle your needle down into the yarn. And that pretty much will thread any kind of yarn you need to thread. If it's really, really bigger than that, you may need a different needle. Okay, so to put my line in, I'm gonna move the stitches onto the cable, because that gives me much more room in the cables, in the stitches, than I have if it's on a needle. There's no room if it's on the needle. So I'm gonna move it down to the cable, and I'm literally just going in through the stitches, just lacing it through. If you have markers, go around the markers. Don't go through them, because if you go through them, you've just connected them to this row. And I have to do it like this, you guys. And so, you can do it like a needle's worth and then pull. And then a needle's worth. And then pull. Until you get it all done. Trying to be careful not to split out those stitches. Don't go through, you don't want to go through yarn like that. You don't want to do that where you split the yarn. You want to make sure you're in the stitches. And that's it. Now, if you've got a bigger project and then there's 100 stitches on or something, yeah, it's sort of a pain, but believe me, that 2 minutes it's going to take you to thread this in is well worth a mistake and having to either knit it all again, which may be a couple hours worth of work, or yeah, it's worth the time and energy to do this. It's not that hard. It takes, depending on how many stitches you have, it's going to take, a few minutes, and it's worth it. Totally worth it. Make sure your ends are long enough so that they're not going to start pulling out anywhere, and you want them just sort of hanging. You want them hanging. This is extra long. You don't need them this long. You probably want them hanging, I don't know, don't scrimp on it. It's better that it's a little too long than too short and it starts wanting to sort of feed out of your stitches. So that's that. All right, that does it for today. I hope you got a lot out of how to pick up your stitches. Do a swatch, pick up your stitches, practice picking up your stitches, and that kind of thing. And we've got lots going on here. We're very busy. It's been very fun. We're very busy. The classes are busy. And we're just having a lot of fun. So I hope to see you in the studio soon. Bye.